Cancer is not always a topic people want to talk about or get checked for. But if you don't, and your cancer is found too late, it may lead to more aggressive treatment or even be fatal. A familiar face in our hometown recently recorded a public service announcement to make us all aware of colorectal cancer and to take action. Let's take a look.
Hi everybody, I'm Professor Mike Igoe from SUNY Fredonia. Back in 2003, I had a colonoscopy, and because of that, my colon cancer was caught early. And here's some of the happy memories I've been able to experience since that time. A colonoscopy saved my life, and it might just save yours as well. For more information, visit the American Cancer Society's website at cancer.org.
Joining us to share his story is former Channel 2 reporter, now Associate Professor at SUNY Fredonia, and Buffalo Broadcast Hall of Famer, Mike Igoe. Welcome, Mike.
Hi, Penny. Thanks for having me.
I really wanted to be updated about what made you, or our viewers to be updated about what prompted you to make this video after all this time.
Well, this year is my 20th anniversary of surviving colon cancer, and one of the reasons I'm around to tell my story is because I got a colonoscopy, which I was supposed to at age 50. So over the years, I've talked to different community groups and things, but I really wanted to do something to get the message out there more that basically, it's important to get tested because you can survive like I did. So I got together with Jim Gibbons, our former videographer down at SUNY Fredonia. It was very nice to put this spot together. Now it's airing on different platforms, including on YouTube and TV stations. And I'm hoping that we're going to get the message out that others' lives can be saved like mine was 20 years ago.
What was the treatment like that you had to go through?
The treatment actually is far from what people suspect, I did have surgery, but when I had the colonoscopy, when it was discovered, people are afraid of that because they think it's going to be painful, and it's not. You were asleep for it. The worst part is the prep. It's like having diarrhea the day before, but basically the camera goes in. That's another thing. People think it's like having a studio camera stuck inside you, and it's not at all. It's a tiny little James Bond camera, about the size of your fingernail. And that's the thing. It can make a difference because typically you don't have symptoms until you're very far along. And unlike breast cancer or lung cancer, you can pretty much figure out what's going on. Colon cancer, until you get too far along, and then it's too late. So colon cancer, and by the way, colon cancer is one of the top leading cancers that kills people in our country, according to the American Cancer Society. But it can be easily prevented just by getting a colonoscopy. The test that finds it.
I'm allowed to tell you this, that our very own John DeShulo, who is 61, I'm allowed to say all this, he wrote it and told me, never had a colonoscopy, and then you're coming in, and the PSA has prompted him, and he swore he would make an appointment, and he's going to go do it.
And he did. So. He showed me, so that's good. But see, there it's again, Penny, what I'm talking about. People are afraid because they think it's going to hurt, or they think they don't need it because they're not feeling anything. And that's the two things. It doesn't hurt. You were asleep for it. It's a very simple procedure, and also can make a big difference.
There are certain, I had the idea that men get needed more than women or have colon cancer.
Not at all. It doesn't discriminate on sex. I think there's a misconception it's a man's disease, but far from it. In fact, when I came back 20 years ago at Channel 2, I did a series, and the amount of women that I interviewed were equally to the amount of men. So it can affect anybody, and at any time in life too. The American Cancer Society now recommends you get tested at age 45, but if you have a family history, you definitely should get tested earlier, because some of the people I interviewed in my special series 20 years ago were much younger. So colon cancer can come at any time of your life.
And as far as like being checked goes, like you said, it's a misconception that it hurts you or that it's just painful. It's not. It's just the don't want to go through the prep.
I know what people are thinking though, because when I used to give talks and I start talking about the camera, I hear this nervous laugh because again, they think it's like a large studio camera or something, and it's not. It's a tiny little thing, and you're sound asleep. So how would you know?
Yeah, the famous actor Chadwick Boseman, who
the Black
filmed,
Panther film.
The Marshal here. So he died at the age of 43 from colon cancer. Do you think that when that happened, you think somebody well-known and famous suffering and dying from that, does it make public more like you're doing the PSA? It's the same thing.
Yeah, exactly right.
The public more aware, oh gosh, I should get checked for that too, or I should get my husband to be checked, or
my level of celebrity is not up to his. But having said that, I know in the years since I left the media in 2009, I still have people talk to me about the colon cancer, and especially March is Colon Cancer Awareness Month. So that's what I say. This is the platform for me to get out the message that you should get tested, and it's not going to hurt you.
You said there are no symptoms, but I think that there are certain ones, if maybe they're not as well known, or maybe you don't associate, I know what it is, you don't necessarily associate those symptoms with colon cancer, but there are ones.
Correct. You can have symptoms, but that doesn't mean you necessarily will have symptoms, which is why it's important to get the test to actually identify. Another problem is sometimes things have been misdiagnosed. Colon cancer is like certain other diseases. It can mimic other types of diseases. So the doctor, without the colonoscopy, may be guessing. And that's, again, why it's important. That test is what it all comes down to, because it can really identify what's going on, and you can react quickly to it.
You know, that is what I was trying to say, what you just said. You may have these symptoms like constipation or bloody stool or, you know, horrible things like that, but you don't necessarily know that or associate it with colon cancer unless you go to a doctor.
Yeah, exactly right. In fact, a friend of mine just got out of the hospital. He had a twisted colon, as it turned out, and they thought he was having, or had a heart attack. And it was not, but the symptoms are very similar. So that's why they did some testing down there, and they found exactly the problem. It had a twisted colon. So again, you really got to get the right test, because it can mimic other diseases or it can be misdiagnosed.
Right. Before you leave, tell us a little bit about where you've been and what you've been doing since you left Channel 2.
All right, well, since I retired from Channel 2, I became a teacher, and the nice thing about that is I've had some interesting experiences. I've taught internationally, including 3 years I lived in China. And the best thing about surviving colon cancer, like my spot shows, I've been able to experience things in my life like my grandkids, my 3 grandkids. I've done some traveling. I got to see Tibet, which I always wanted to see, and lots of many different experiences that, had I been down on the ground, I wouldn't be experiencing these. So again, colonoscopies, testing for colon cancer does make a difference. I'm living proof.
Yes, living, talking, and TV proof to everybody once they see you on TV. What about the SUNY professor, associate professor? What do you teach there?
I teach journalism, not surprisingly. But I also teach law too, because as you know, I have a law degree. But it's interesting because, you know, nowadays, of course, the media market is very much different. The kids have to do it just about everything. So I train to industry standards. I teach them the things they need to know to survive in today's media world.
That can't be easy.
No, it means you have to learn how to do everything. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, and you can teach them how to do everything?
Well, I keep up to date. First of all, I keep contact with the industry. I also go to the Broadcast Education Conference every year, so I catch up on all the latest technology, different teaching techniques, and lots of things. So I make an effort to stay current, and I watch, of course, all sorts of videos.
And yeah, that helps, right, too?
Absolutely.
And I think of all the things that you've sort of said, I did, thank goodness, since I survived. Going and living in China for 3 years was probably pretty, well, not just Tibet, but China itself, teaching and working there, was probably very, very unique. Something you wouldn't have imagined that you'd be doing.
Definitely a life-changing experience. And I always was interested in going to China, but I had the opportunity. They recruited me because of my broadcasting background, and they wanted someone with some practical experience to teach the students to industry standards. So it was very interesting because, of course, I had never lived in a foreign country, and number 2, a foreign country where English is not necessarily widely spoken. I got in China the first couple of days by myself before I got to my college and made some connections and everything. I'm roaming around Guangdong province in China. Nobody's talking English. And I'm going, dear God in heaven, what's I had in my mind? But fortunately, it worked out well because the kids were very supportive, as were my colleagues. And I got by just fine.
Did you get familiar with, do you feel you're familiar with the culture and with the thinking of
yeah, absolutely.
Chinese
you know,
people?
one thing, if you take a trip and you go somewhere, you never really experience what a country's really all about. Because, you know, you go out and eat nice dinners and you're on whatever the itinerary is.
You do tourist things.
Yeah, touristy things, exactly right. But when you live in a country, you have to deal with the day-to-day things about, do I want to go into this restaurant? How do I pay my gas bill? How do I pay the landlord? All the day-to-day stuff, which you don't think about. And also, a lot of times people are not speaking English, so you have to learn how to communicate when you don't speak Chinese, or they don't speak Chinese.
And that's not the easiest language. I mean, you can maybe in France or Spain or Italy, you can pick up some words.
No, because China is symbols.
It's
In fact, one of my stories is when I first got to China, I was brought to a hotel, and my driver said, Professor Mike, no one's going to be talking English. I'm fine. Well, I had some tummy trouble, and unfortunately, the room didn't have toilet paper. And I said, okay, how do I communicate this downstairs? Well, my daughter Kylie had given me a little pocket translator that had phrases in there. So you punch in the code, And one of the phrases in the book was, "The room is out of toilet paper." I go down to the desk, I play it for them, they laugh hysterically, and they give me the darn toilet paper. So language is an issue. Absolutely.
Mike Igoe, thank you so much for joining us, and especially for encouraging us to get checked out and go to our doctor.
Thank you for having me.
So remember, you can find out more from your doctor and from the American Cancer Society at cancer.org. That's all the time we have for the program. Join us next week when we sit down with Buffalo Mayor Byron Brown. Thanks for watching The Big Picture. Remember to follow WBBZ-TV on Facebook and join the conversation at WBBZ on Twitter. I'm Judge Penny Wolfgang. I'll see you next week.